Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
You know, Meek Mill and this offseason certainly has something in common. Meek Mill in this offseason said to us today, "You thought I was finished? Oh, just you wait, because we have riveting news coming out of the G5, which necessitates the need here tonight." We are going to go ahead and take a look at every single hire that happened during the course of this coaching carousel. We're going to give our thoughts about every single coach that was recently hired as a head coach. We're going to have some cold takes. We might even have some hot takes here tonight. But first and foremost, appreciate everybody tuning in on this full spring of a Thursday night. I'm joined by my co-host, the right-hand man himself, Reed Napper. How we doing tonight, my boy?
Good, bro. I wasn't expecting to talk about new head coaches near the end of February, but, you know, we're here. That's the beauty of college football, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see that for the second year in a row, we've seen a coach very late in the winter cycle, going into spring ball, leaving to take another job. The NFL claims another casualty, a beloved figure, a figure that we're going to talk about in depth here tonight to figure out what does Northern Illinois go from here as they prepare for their first year in the Mountain West in the Big 2026 in the same conference as Boise State. But we have that, and then we have a tier maker that we're going to run through tonight as well to kind of give a level set on what we think about every coach in the country that just got hired. Going to be a jam-packed show here tonight. We're going to have some fun here tonight, and I hope you guys have fun enjoying this show as well. Make sure you go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new. And with that being said, man, we got to jump into really the biggest reason why we wanted to jump into this kind of news this time of year. Thomas Hammock, longtime Northern Illinois head coach. He is gone like a girl in a country song, a offensive assistant for the Seattle Seahawks now. He's not an offensive coordinator. He didn't take a head coaching job at the NFL. From what I understand, he's not even a position coach. No, he is an offensive assistant. And I mean, this is just a gut punch for Northern Illinois, just from the standpoint of where we are in spring ball.
Don't forget, Jake, a senior offensive assistant, not just a offensive assistant, the senior type. From Thomas Hammock's perspective, I totally understand it. I mean, you only get so many opportunities to coach at the NFL level. So from that perspective, I totally understand it. This could be a once in a lifetime opportunity for him. The timing of it is a little interesting to me personally, because it is February 19th. This news broke yesterday. We are halfway through February. and we're talking about a new head coach potentially taking over a Division I program. Let alone Northern Illinois entering a whole new conference against opponents they've never played before, at least consistently. Um, Now, personally, I think Thomas Hammock might have been at least on the warm seat coming into this season, coming off a 3-9 season, going to a new conference. The school probably was expecting him to be at least somewhat competitive in the Mountain West in their first season there. But posting an overall record of 35-47, did win the MAC championship in 2021. So there were some highs. The highest of those highs, walking into Notre Dame Stadium and shocking the Fighting Irish in 2024 for one of the one of the best upsets in recent memory. So there definitely were some highs for the Huskies under Thomas Hammock, but I feel like the biggest thing for me is the timing of this is just weird. It came out of nowhere. Personally, I get the Seahawks went the longest of any NFL team making it to the Super Bowl and winning it. So I get it, but again, the timing is just weird.
Yeah, it's weird, and I think over the past 24 hours, I think we've seen the difference between what was the perception of Thomas Hammock versus the reality of what Thomas Hammock was as a coach. I mean, and nothing really captures that perception versus reality than just taking an honest look at my Twitter account. Okay, I remember when the news first broke. I remember thinking just a pure gut feeling like, man, this was a guy that like really maximize the talent on the team, and just really thinking about the highs of, them going into Notre Dame Stadium and beating the Fighting Irish team that went on and played in the national championship game. And Northern Illinois beat those guys. And then also what happened a few years ago, right after the first season after COVID, Northern Illinois winning the MAC as well. So there was incredible highs that they got to experience under Thomas Hammock, but there was, it seemed, a lack of consistency as well. Just thinking about what Northern Illinois was in the 2010s, there was a 5-year stretch from 2010 to 2014 where they were averaging double-digit wins a year. They lost 2 conference games in a span of 5 years. They had a Heisman Trophy candidate in Jordan Lynch. Do you know how hard it is to get a Heisman Trophy candidate in the G5 of all places?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Kellen Moore. I mean, I don't even, like, that's rarefied air to be a Heisman candidate at a G5 school.
Yeah, I mean, there's Kellen Moore, there's Jordan Lynch, Lynch, he had to hop on his Twitter to let the people know, hey, we're not planning on taking this head coaching job, because I know that his name was being floated around before a head coach was named. And then, most recently Ashton Genty, who I actually thought should have won the Heisman, but I digress. Travis Hunter, just a deserving. He was a tremendous player last year as well. But yeah, that was Northern Illinois at one point, one of the best programs in the G5, certainly in the MAC. And under Thomas Hammock, they fell into mediocrity. So I don't know what it's going to bring for 2026, because the transfer portal will open up in the next few days. And because the transfer portal does open up in the next few days because of their head coach leaving to take another job, the Huskies don't have any remedies to replenish talent in the portal this late. But for maybe 2027 and beyond, if they get this next head coaching hire right, maybe we could see Northern Illinois return back to what we saw them in those early 2010s.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm not trying to speak for Thomas Hammock. I don't know what the exact thought process was for him during this, time. But I feel like part of this was he needed to take a step back, because, again, there were the severe highs and lows in his tenure at Northern Illinois. Again, coming off a 3-9 season last year, I feel like maybe he just needed to take a step back, take some of the responsibility off his shoulders of being a head coach at a college football program. Step back and be an assistant.
Yeah, and I know that he was certainly one of those coaches out there that was very adamant and was very vocal about how he felt about the current NIL and transfer portal state of affairs. And it could have certainly been one of those situations where he was just tired of dealing with constantly recruiting his own roster. He was constantly tired at the same time of recruiting his own roster, being able to also have to recruit high school kids to replenish your roster for the long term, as well as trying to find kids in the transfer portal to try to supplement talent in the short term, because we do live in an era where the amount of patience that a coach has is so much lesser than what we saw because of partially what Kurt Cignetti has done, where he's turned Indiana from the poverty program that they were just a few years ago to now they're hosting a college football playoff national championship trophy. So that could certainly be the case. Again, I know, as you said, Reed, I don't know the guy. From what I've seen from NIU fans, seems like he was a genuine person. He seems like a good guy. But whether that was why he left, who knows, man? We really don't.
Yeah, and you were talking about supplementing talent for the immediate future. Who knows what who knows what talent NIU is about to have in the next season, because their portal window just opened today. They get a 15-day window. So who knows how much of that roster is gonna just dip out. I mean, they do have interim head coach Rob Harley, who was named the defensive coordinator last year and now is already the interim head coach. So I don't know if he's going to be the long-term replacement. I guess time will tell on that. But I mean, this NIU roster and potentially coaching staff too could be in fluctuation, and we have spring practice in less than a month. Like it's wild. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I will say this about Rob Harley as well. For as bad as NIU was from a record standpoint, the defense was actually pretty solid for the NIU Huskies. They ranked 64th in total defense, which doesn't sound that impressive. But when you consider you have an offensive unit that was 127th in the country in scoring last year, so this was a team that was not necessarily sustaining drives. That defense was out there the majority of the games, for the majority of the games that they played in. That's actually pretty solid, all things considered. So I'm going to be curious to see if Rob Harley, now that he has been named a head coach, does he retain those defensive play calling duties, or does he hand off those defensive play calling duties to either a co-off defensive coordinator, as well as figure out like backfilling the rest of the staff, as well as who's going to be calling the plays offensively. Because if NIU is going to be successful this year, they have to be better than 127th. When your passing is inefficiently as a military academy, but you don't have a military academy level running game, that's a problem. That is absolutely a problem. That's why they were 3-9 last year.
Yeah, you know it's bad when you get compared to Air Force or Army, for example. Not going to bash Navy because, I mean, you know me. Love the midshipmen. But, I mean, yeah, they were pathetically bad offensively last year. So it's definitely going to be interesting. I could see him kind of defer some of the defensive play calling just solely because it takes less off of his plate. It makes him, look at his team more holistically, try to implement himself all around as opposed to just focusing on the defense. Obviously, he'll still give input on that side. At least I'm suspecting, but I think he could defer the play calling to whoever he does name as defensive coordinator and just takes a bunch of, weight off of his shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah. And not only be able to get some of that weight off his shoulders, but also being able to try and retain some of the talent that they did manage to bring in through the portal. Because to be fair, what they did brought into the portal, I did thought that they were going to have some sneaky good guys, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. They had plenty of dudes from the FCS level that were very productive in their time at the either the FCS ranks or Division II. So I actually think their defense, regardless of what happened to Thomas Hammock, I thought they were going to be fine. It was just a matter of, can their offense be an offense, right? I normally would say, take a step forward, but no steps were taken forward last year offensively. And given what they were having come back anyways, there wasn't a ton of talent. But the talent that you do have, if you're able to retain it, I think that would be a good start for Rob Harley. How I think of him as a coach and how I think of him as an interim hire, we'll dive into that more. But it's going to be more to come, and it's going to be fascinating to see if there is any notable entries in the transfer portal during this 15-day window that is going to eventually open up now that Rob Harley has been named the interim coach.
I definitely think they will get some of their better talent out the door. I feel I have an inkling, because that's been the common theme with coaches that get fired abruptly or leave abruptly, and you just see a lot of the top talent head out the door because they're trying to play as soon as possible. So one of the running backs I saw already went in the portal. I don't know how many more players have gone in the portal to this point. But it's definitely going to be interesting. And again, we're less than a month away from spring practice. So this arguably is some of the most important time for Northern Illinois, because they got to figure out who's for sure going to be on the roster, who's for sure going to stay on the coaching staff before they even get to spring ball, because they got to implement some sort of structure offensively and defensively, in spring ball before we get to fall practice for sure.
Yeah, so it'll definitely be a fascinating story to watch as we continue to monitor the situation. But again, Rob Harley going to be your interim head coach, and he is going to be one of 35 coaches that are going to be a brand new head coach at the FBS level. Yes, you heard that right, 35, because what a lot of people don't account for is the fact that the former MC Hammer dancer and Alonzo Carter, he is now an FBS head coach. We didn't think it was going to be like that when he first took that job. But now that Sacramento State, part of the same conference that Northern Illinois used to enjoy, used to be a part of action, used to be a part of that institution as a college football entity. Now Sacramento State gets to be a part of that institution and will be one of 35 coaches that we're going to take a look at in terms of what we think about them as a hire, and we have it broken down in 5 different tiers. We have the top tier, the home run tier. That is an A+ hire. That's one that we absolutely love. We have rock solid that we think is a good hire. This is not necessarily a perfect hire. Meh is okay. Don't really have any strong feelings either way. Then the last 2 tiers that we have here tonight is we have the very bottom tier is what are we doing? A great phrase that we have here on the show from yours truly. That is one where we have so many questions. We're wondering what this program was thinking in hiring this particular candidate. And then the 4th tier being I have questions, meaning I have some animosity towards this hire. So,
which I have plenty.
Which I'm sure you have plenty as well. And I have a handful too. But with that being said, 35 coaches, we're going to get through them all tonight with the co-host Reed. But yeah, man, hopefully y'all been enjoying some of this NIU news coming out. You're probably dancing in the streets if you are eyeing some defensive talent. You need some defensive players for your roster for 2026. If you're an NIU guy, it's interesting times. That's all I got to say about that.
The transfer portal is always alive. There is always tampering, recruiting, stuff like that. So it'll never be asleep.
Yeah, it truly will never be asleep. But hey, since we're talking about Northern Illinois, it's only appropriate that we start with Rob Harley, been a head coach for 24 hours now. And for me personally, I had Rob Harley as in that I have questions tier. I don't think it's a complete disaster, but I do think that it is interesting that they decided to elevate a coach on the staff that has been mediocre over the last few years, and in particular went 3-9 going into the Mountain West. And we're also talking about elevating the defensive coordinator, a unit that has not had any issues. So now that he might be wearing multiple hats, is the defense going to be at the same level? I think it would have made more sense if they went outside, did what Bowling Green did last year, getting Eddie George to inject a little bit more incitement into your program. He is experienced. He did a really good job with the defense, but as a head coach, I'm not as sure about him. So I have in that I have questions here.
I definitely agree with you. I feel like if they went out and gave Peyton Lynch a call, the greatest player in their school's history, I feel like he would have taken the job in a heartbeat. And I would at least put rock solid because I would be very optimistic about their offensive play if Peyton Lynch was the head coach. But because they are promoting their defensive coordinator and he is unproven as a head coach, we have no idea who's going to be doing the offensive or defensive play calling, as we just said. I'm gonna have to put him in the I have questions tier because it's a lot of unknown right now.
Yeah, so there we go. First coach on the board. We got the man himself, Rob Harley, taking over for NIU. He's going to be in that I have questions tier. But with that being said, we got 34 more coaches to go. So I'm going to go ahead and roll from the left and make our way over to the right-hand side, starting with Alex Golesh. Alex Golesh, I'm a little bit higher on him. I actually have him in that rock solid tier. I love the fact that he was able to turn that USF program around, a program that is in a talent-rich area, but for whatever reason, ever since we saw the Charlie Strong era go into fruition, really struggled. Golesh did a really nice job turning him around. Does have ties to the SEC footprint as well, which I think is very important, particularly for that conference. I don't have it as a home run hire because he doesn't have that experience as a Power 4 head coach, but I do think it's a rock solid hire, though.
Totally agree. I graded Alex Golesh as a B+ hire, so totally put him in that rock solid category. I think his experience being Tennessee's offensive coordinator previous to his USF head coaching position, I feel like that's going to play dividends. He's seen the SEC before. He knows how to prepare against an SEC defense. And that spread style offense that he has, mastered to this point is must-watch football. If you had ever watched South Florida under Golesh, especially with Byron Brown, who he brought with him to Auburn for at least 1 year, it's must-watch football. I've loved watching South Florida, and Byron Brown is one of my favorite players in the country. So Alex Golesh is definitely in that rock-solid category. The biggest question for me, though, is how does he mesh with DJ Durkin on the defensive side? I feel like that's going to be the biggest question. If Auburn's defense can stay consistent and Golesh can, get that Auburn offense back running, full steam ahead, because they did lose pieces in the portal. Let's not forget they did lose Cam Coleman, they did lose Eric Singleton, so they did lose some of their main offensive players, but they did bring a few from South Florida. So you have to bake in that some of the South Florida talent will be able to perform at this level. So I'm going rock solid hire for Alex Golesh. I think the community there has also taken a liking from him from everything that I've seen. So rock solid hire for sure.
Yeah. So so far we're agreeing, but I'm waiting for that moment where one of us is gonna have some choice words in terms of asking ourselves, hey, what are you thinking here? That is not what I had in mind at all. But is what it is though. I'm sure that day will come. But for now, we move on to the next coach on this list, a man that is taking over as the head coach for UAB, Alex Mortensen. He was the interim head coach for UAB after Trent Dilfer got fired, and then he was elevated as the permanent head coach for right now. This is another one of those coaches where I had as the I have questions tier. Kind of the same situation as NIU, because even though UAB played a little bit better, they still went 2-4. And for UAB, offense wasn't the issue. They knew how to put up points. The defense was the problem. So if you put UAB's offense together and NIU's defense, you put them on the same team, you're talking about a really good football team. But that's not how it works here in college football. Inexperience as well, just being a part of a staff where the head coach gets fired also rubs me the wrong way. Does have the upset win over Memphis. That was a really big win at the time, so that's why I don't have him in the what are we doing. But I'd certainly have some questions about Morrison taking over as head coach.
Jake, we're 3 for 3.
Oh my God.
I also have him in the I have questions. No, but I'm also going to plug my article. I wrote an article about this, yesterday. So, um, Alex Moore, I graded him as a D higher solely because he doesn't have the experience as a head coach. I mean, he was the interim last year, but then again, we'll get to Pete Golding later. I have thoughts about that. So, um, again, first full-time head coaching position. It's definitely going to be interesting. Exactly for what you said. UAB's offense was very productive last year, and their defense, yeah, was something. So it's definitely going to be interesting. I think I think being a first-time head coach at a level of UAB though is definitely okay. I feel like that's a good level if you are to get your first head coaching position at a school like UAB. I feel like it's definitely a manageable position. You're able to kind of learn on the job a little bit because you're not focused with the pressure of being a power four job and trying to compete right out of the gate. I guess it's going to be interesting if UAB how much leeway I guess they give him as this being his first head coaching job. So definitely have questions though, because a lot of, exactly what we've talked about. Their defense was questionable. Will they be able to translate their offensive success from last season to next season? And again, most of the first time head coaches, I'm going to put an eye of questions or at least meh. So, Alex Morrison, I graded a D personally, but definitely have questions for sure.
Yeah, and just to really capture how bad UAB's defense was, I watched their first game of the year. They played Alabama State in their opener, and they nearly gave a 50 burger up against Alabama State, which they turned out to be a pretty good offensive unit in their own right down the FCS level. But when you're giving up borderline 50 points against an FCS program, that's a problem. That is absolutely a problem. But I don't know if that's going to be fixed right away, or I don't know if he's going to be capable of fixing it in the long term as well. So yeah, definitely agree with the I have questions. Not someone that I don't have as many questions about because they are a little bit more experienced. So is Billy Napier. I do have Billy Napier higher than a couple of the coaches that we already talked about. But for me, when it comes to Billy Napier, I couldn't go any higher than meh. I understand that he does have head coaching experience. He's proven that he can win at the G5 level, given what he was able to accomplish at Louisiana. But this was also a coach that was recently fired. And it was something that I alluded to as well. Are we going to see Sunbelt Billy that gave Billy Napier the Florida job back when he was hired for that position a few years ago? Or are we going to see Florida Billy that got fired, even though he had incredible talent such as DJ Lagway? So for Billy Napier, I couldn't go any higher than meh personally.
I feel like at the current stage, Billy Napier is a meh head coach. Just solely because you have to go off recency bias here. His time in Florida wasn't great. I personally thought back end of 2024, they finally figured it out, got a couple upset wins, notably over Ole Miss at home. So I looked like they finally figured it out. They reeled off a couple wins. We're going into 2025, had a loaded roster on paper, but quickly that got shot down after they lost to South Florida in week 2 at home. So it went up in flames from there. The fans were done with him, and then eventually the school was done with him. So I think JMU is a good step back for him, solely because, like you said, Jake, all of his major coaching success has been at the G5 level with Louisiana. So I feel like going to JMU is definitely a good step back for him. He's able to get his feet back up under him, essentially. I feel like because JMU has produced, two fantastic head coaches in their last 2 coaches, namely Kurt Signetti and Bob Chesney. So I feel like this is the perfect position for him to get his feet back under him, find out what was successful at Louisiana, take what he learned from Florida, and, be consistent again at JMU, because that's a program that has shown to produce high level coaching talent. And I feel like it's just a good position for him. I personally ranked him as a B. So I feel like the meh is a good spot because of recency bias. But again, he is a former Saban assistant. We can't overlook that. He was a former Alabama assistant. So take that with a grain of salt, though. As a head coach at the current moment, Billy Napier is a meh hire.
Yeah, and we'll and to be fair to James Madison has been one of the best programs, at least in the Sun Belt, if not the entirety of the G5. So I'm curious to see how Billy Napier does. Just in that the majority of his head coaching success has happened prior to really when the transfer portal and NIL really took place. Now that he's back in a G5 environment, but this time we have now seen transfer portal and NIL in full swing. Very curious to see how he handles that while James Madison has more resources than the majority of your G5 schools or G6, and if you want to count the Pac-12 as well in the FBS level. I'm curious to see how he handles utilizing G5 level resources at the same time.
Yeah, it's I mean, I feel like dealing with NIL at Florida is a beast by itself, let alone being the head coach at Florida. So I feel like having that experience of being at a major college football program and dealing with NIL, where you're literally dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars for certain players, I feel like that's going to be good experience for him. He knows where to set the bar and how to gauge talent based on NIL worth. So I feel like that plays a benefit to him.
Yeah, and speaking of the G5 and speaking of the Sun Belt, actually, the next coach that we have on deck here as well, Blake Anderson. He is going to take over as the head coach of Southern Miss. He was most recently on Charles Huff's staff as the offensive coordinator at Southern Miss. So for me, I also went meh here for different reasons. He was fired from his previous head coaching job. He was fired from Utah State. And then had to take a year hiatus from that head coaching spot to coach under Charles Huff. And he did a pretty good job with the offense. And it's going to be nice from a continuity standpoint, seeing that we have witnessed him fail recently as a head coach at Utah State, though. I also couldn't go any higher than Matt as well.
Jake, we finally disagree.
Oh my goodness, we're capable of thinking differently. Incredible.
We are capable of having our own individual thoughts. It's crazy. Yeah, I'm solely basing this off the Utah State debacle, if we want to call it that. You didn't go into specifics, and I'm only going to say this one time, and then I'm not going to repeat it the rest of my portion here. He was fired due to a Title IX incident where a player, I'm not even going to go into specifics, a Title IX issue. He was withholding that information from the university and then proceeded to get fired because he never told anyone about the situation at hand. So because of that history, I'm going with what are we doing? Because I personally don't think that he should be a head coach that's a good happy medium right there. Because I have a lot of questions for you, Blake. I don't think he should be a head coach at a powered football level. At least, go back to like FCS or D2 or something, to at least, build your credibility back up. But considering that wasn't that long ago, I just don't trust him at the moment. I don't know the dude, don't know him personally. Could be a really cool guy, could be a nice guy. But because of withholding that information, I gave him an F for that, because that's, above and beyond, just bad faith as a head coach and as a straight up mentor for these young adults that are playing college football nowadays. Like, you're withholding information from a university that a player told you in secrecy, or at least told you in good faith, that like you would try to help him handle the situation, and you just didn't do anything at all, basically. So I gave him an F personally. I have no idea what his tenure at Southern Miss is going to hold for him. So a lot of questions for Blake Anderson.
Yeah, and for those of you that are watching live, like on YouTube, because we figure we're not going to agree on everything, what we're going to do is we're going to shoot for the happy medium between what I think and what he thinks. And if it's a case where we're only one tier off, we're going to create a new tier, and we're going to let you guys vote through a Twitter poll at a later time before it gets finalized, and you see the full graphic like on Twitter. So that's why I put him in the eye of questions. Is for times that we disagree, we're going to go with the happy medium so that we don't have to make it super complicated. But that being said, just getting that administrative thing out of the way. How about a coach that doesn't have maybe as checkered of a past as who we just finished discussing about? Bob Chesney, former head coach of James Madison, and now he is the head coach at UCLA. So, I'm going to be honest with you. You're probably going to want to hold on to your chair here.
Okay.
I had Bob Chesney as a meh. So here, I know we saw what happened with James Madison this year. I know what you're thinking, but just hear me out here for a second.
Okay.
So,
all right, I'm listening.
The college football playoff run was an incredible run, but a couple of things that I am worried about with Bob Chesney is one that we're talking about a coach that doesn't have any power head coaching experience yet. Winning in the Sun Belt is different than trying to win consistently in the Big Ten. And something else that I'm worried about as well is we're talking about a head coach that has zero ties to the West Coast. All of his coaching has either taken place, and this also applies to his football playing career as well, either in the Midwestern part of the country or specifically in the East Coast / Northeast, accounting for his time at Holy Cross as well. And with UCLA's issues that they had with NIL, one of the things that UCLA is going to have to do is recruit. And because he doesn't necessarily have those ties, I'm worried about his ability to recruit against some of the programs that are also out there on the West Coast, such as a USC, such as an Oregon, such as a Washington as well. Even some of the better G5s that are out there, UNLV's on the rise. Boise State is on the rise as well. He's going to have to compete against all of those programs from a recruiting and portal standpoint. So because he doesn't really have the ties to the West Coast, and because he doesn't have that power for head coaching experience, that was why I had him as meh.
Now, exactly for what you said, that was the only knock I had on him when giving my grades, is he hasn't coached anywhere west of the Rocky Mountains. So you have to take that into effect, especially for the recruiting aspect, like you said. But he did bring in the 33rd ranked transfer portal class this past cycle. So at least from that point of view, it's optimistic, if he's able to lure talent to UCLA. But because of his coaching career, 21-6 at James Madison, numerous winning seasons and playoff appearances at the Division III, Division II, and FCS level, I'm putting him in rock solid. So if you want to make a new category here, I personally think stylistically he's a great head coach. Again, the time will tell if he's able to recruit and get talent from the West Coast to commit to UCLA. Time will only tell with that. So I think just stylistically and what he's been able to accomplish as a head coach, and also from the perspective that he took over for the one and only Kurt Signetti at JMU and still went 21-6 in 2 seasons. So, and took JMU to their first ever playoff appearance. So recency bias included, I'm putting Bob Chesney at an above average to rock solid head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not doubting that he's an incredible coach. I don't have him where I have him because I don't think that he can coach. He's proven that he can win at every level. But at the same time, I mean, Big Ten football compared to Sun Belt football, it's a completely different beast.
True.
And I also know you mentioned them having a 33rd ranked recruiting class. We know how it normally goes when a new head coach comes into the building, and it's not an interim guy. They're usually portaling heavy. So yeah, UCLA is a top 35 transfer portal class, but what's the quality of guys included in that list, right? Are they there because it's a lot of really quality talent, or are they up there because they portaled close to 50 guys? Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm curious to see how it turns out. I am rooting for him because I really enjoyed watching that James Madison team last year. But I certainly got some concerns for him. That is for sure.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. I don't think there's gonna be immediate success, at least in year one. Again, it's February 19th, so we have no idea at this current point. But I think over the next 2 to 3 years, Bob Chesney could at least get UCLA competing, in that 8-9 win range. Maybe even better for UCLA. I think that's the level that he could bring them to.
All right. All right. So next coach that we do have on deck is Brian Hartline, getting his first head coaching opportunity, leaving as the offensive coordinator at Ohio State to become the head coach at Southern Florida.
Wait, that's a picture of Brian Hartline?
Yeah.
How old is that? I'm sorry, that looks nothing like him now, so I was confused. I was like, who is that?
Listen, we found it might have been from when he was a little bit younger, but we were finding a picture that was easy to crop because we made the tier maker by hand because there wasn't any tier maker that existed. So this is available, by the way, on the tier maker website if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, Brian Hartline, I was a rock solid hire. I know he doesn't have head coaching experience, but he knows how to recruit in Southern Florida, and he does have college football playoff experience as a coordinator as well. So I didn't go home run because he's never been a head coach before, but Brian Hartline, I do think he is a rock solid hire, though.
I'm good with him in the rock solid category. I personally, now I might be a little bullish here. I said this is an A+ hire. So I'm cool with rock solid just solely because he doesn't have that head coaching experience. But I said he's an A+ hire just solely because of the talent he has been able to acquire. Now, granted, it was at Ohio State, so they do have name recognition with that. But outside of the wide receiver room at Ohio State, he's been the best recruiter overall for Ohio State in the country, arguably, over the past 3-4 seasons, however long he's been there. So he's bringing in the 53rd ranked class and the #1 transfer portal class, among G5, G6 schools. So I think he's brought in a lot of talent that can impact that roster immediately. And I personally have him as a very good contender for the G5 spot in the playoffs this coming season. I think time will tell stylistically, but I mean, we saw Ohio State last year when he was the main play caller. They were taking shots. When you have the receiver core and the quarterback to be able to do it, you can take shots down the field. So I'm not putting the receivers he has at South Florida up to Jeremiah Smith, Cardinal Tate, Brandon Ennis. I'm not putting them on that level. But when he's the main play caller, it's must-watch football. So I put it as an A+ hire just solely because I think he was one of the most underrated, coaches on the market. I mean, Penn State was going after him. There were a couple other schools that were going after him. So I personally think it's a great hire for South Florida, but I'm totally fine putting him in rock solid just solely because he doesn't have that previous head coaching experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's going to be someone that got one of those quintessential good hire. Don't know if it's going to work out because we truly don't know. There's probably going to be inevitably a few guys that we put either in the home run or rock solid tier that end up getting fired in for years. That always happens from every coaching cycle. So I do want to carry that caveat unless this bites us in the butt a few years later. But anyhow, another person I do want to put in the rock solid hire is the head coach that was hired at Missouri State as well, Casey Woods. He was the offensive coordinator at SMU, notably helping with the development of Kevin Jennings and being part of that coaching staff where SMU did make the college football playoff a couple of years ago as an at-large team. So again, this is going to be his first opportunity to be a head coach for Casey Woods. But at the same time, though, he does have playoff experience similar to Brian Hartline. So I actually have Casey Woods as a rock solid hire in my book as well.
We agree once again, Jake. I had him as a B grade, so I'm good with the rock solid hire. I think, being the offensive coordinator at SMU and looking at how productive they were, at least over the last 2 seasons, with Kevin Jennings at quarterback, brought him to the college football playoff 2 years ago in the ACC championship in their first season in the conference. I mean, I'm going recency bias again. It's you literally turn on the tape for SMU and you see how productive they were on offense. So I think this is a good hire if he's able to translate that offensive success to a holistic approach to a football team. I think it's going to do wonders. I'm curious to see if he does be the main play caller offensively for Missouri State, or he does similar to NIU's interim head coach. If he, kind of takes a step back, looks at his whole team holistically, and inserts himself where he sees fit. So I see it as a solid hire for sure. I think there's a lot of upside with Casey Woods.
Yeah, and Missouri State definitely has plenty to be excited about. Being able to make it through the FBS transition and finish with a winning season. I mean, Missouri State, that is a quality season that they had up there in that part of the country. I don't know what town. I'm not going to say off the top of my head. But with that being said, next coach that we have, Charles Huff. I think I'm feeling a little bold tonight, Reed. I think this is a home run hire by Memphis. I am looking at a coach that not only has the experience at the G5 level, notably his time at Marshall, being able to lead Marshall to the Sun Belt title a couple of years ago, than what he did at Southern Miss, being able to turn around Southern Miss relatively quickly after the absolute disaster that we saw from Will Hall during his time at Southern Miss. And so Charles Huff goes into another G5 place. And not only that, he also has the ties in the state of Tennessee and really in that prime recruiting area that Memphis wants to go recruit as well. So when it comes to G5 locations, it's a little bit different for how I consider them a home run hire than if it was a power conference team. Given that Memphis is in the American, though, I'm willing to say that this is a home run hire.
I personally graded Charles Huff as a B+. So I'm good with like the upper tier of rock solid to home run hire, solely because 2 years ago he won 10 games at Marshall before taking the Southern Miss job. So you have to, again, recency bias as a head coach. He's a proven winner. He's a proven program builder. He took Marshall from, being a pretty average football team stylistically and, recently, to winning 10 games in 2024. And then he brought essentially his whole roster to Southern Miss and went 7-5 in your first year, which is pretty solid, all things considered, especially, as you said, after the Will Hall situation and how bad he was at Southern Miss. So I definitely am aligned with you on, especially for a G5 hire, especially at Memphis and the highs that they're coming off of with Ryan Silverfield. This is a, on the base, on the, doorsteps of being a home run hire for sure.
Yeah, maybe not getting a home run, but maybe you you hit it off the wall and you end up getting like a double or a triple or something. It feels like that kind of hire. So yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, definitely the best hire that we have on here. I'm going to be curious to see if we actually have one where we both agree is a home run hire, or if it just ends up being a tier that I have to delete later. But anyhow, the next one that we do have is Eric Morris. I do have Eric Morris as a rock solid hire. Really love what he was able to do at North Texas last year, and also being able to bring some of his notable offensive guys over to Oklahoma State. He understands the Big 12 footprint, being that he was coaching in the state of Texas. Oklahoma State likes to recruit in the state of Texas. It's a talent-rich state. Who doesn't? The one knock that I did have on him and why I couldn't make this a home run hire is because of the fact that this is a power conference job. It's a higher level of competition, and he just doesn't have the head coaching experience at the power conference level. But I think it's a really good hire, though.
Totally agree, Jake. That was the only knock I had on him, is that he hasn't had a Power 4 job before, head coaching job before. But I think something that gets overlooked with Eric Morris specifically is his talent recognition. You have to think Drew Messamaker walks on at North Texas, played safety in high school, walks on to North Texas and says, I want to be a quarterback. Eric Morris gives him the chance to be a quarterback. Now 2 years ago in his bowl game, lights the world on fire. Everything is looking upward for Drew Messmaker. Just goes out and leads the nation in passing yards this past season. Out of nowhere, 34 touchdowns. Also, not to mention, star running back Caleb Hawkins was also in the backfield with him for 25 touchdowns and also led the nation in rushing touchdowns. So I think Eric Morse is so far an underrated coach when it comes to talent acquisition. I'm not going to put him on Kurt Signetti level yet because that's like S plus tier of talent recognition. But Eric Morris is definitely in that conversation of being a great, eye for talent. And I think he doesn't get enough credit for that. So definitely a rock solid hire. Oklahoma State is going to be one of the teams I'm very interested in going into 2026, just solely because of how much talent he did bring from North Texas over to Oklahoma State. You could say the Oklahoma State Mean Green. So definitely Eric Morris is a solid hire.
Or North Texas Cowboys, depending on how you want to take a look at it. Whatever sounds more catchy. But yeah, Oklahoma State is going to be better this year, and I think, granted, being better than 1-11, that's not necessarily a flex, but they're going to be better this year. All
they got to do is just be 20% better defensively, because just going off Eric Morris's style and his coaching ability, that they're going to put up points. Their offense is going to be dynamic. At least we're hoping. So
yeah, if you just beat an FBS program, you are better than last year. That's really in a nutshell. Next coach that we have Jamarcus Shepard. He was one of the coordinators on Kalen DeBoer's staff. Now moving over to the Pacific Northwest in Oregon State. And Jamarcus Shepard, he's someone that does have some ties out there in the northwestern part of the country. Spent some time in the Pacific Northwest during his playing and coaching career. He's also someone that does notably also have college football playoff experience, being a part of a staff that actually did win a college football playoff game on the road, which we thought that was impossible after how the 2024 CFP played out. This is his first time coaching, though, so I'm curious to see how it goes, but I do think it's a rock-solid hire for Oregon State as they transition into a brand-new Pac-12.
I'm going to have to put him in that above-average category with Bob Chesney. I graded him as a C+, just solely because I get it. He has ties to the region. Former assistant at Washington when DeBoer was there, and then followed him to Alabama. So he does have plenty of, power level football acumen to his name. But I feel like this was kind of a random hire, at least to me personally. I didn't really see this coming for Oregon State. So just solely because I don't really know how this is going to go specifically, because he doesn't have experience as a head coach. He's only been an assistant his entire career. So, he does have assistant head coach on his resume, but that's levels different than being the full-time head coach.
We're talking about the difference between being a regional manager and being the assistant to the regional manager.
Yes.
We're talking about there's levels to this, for sure.
Yes. Shout out the Office.
Yeah. Who knew we were going to get an Office reference here in the big 2026? So you love to see it. Definitely kept me busy during the COVID times. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. That's an S tier show. If we're tier ranking shows, that's an S tier show.
That's an S tier. That might be something for the for the Monday mailbag. Embroil ourselves deeper into the passive part of the football season. For now, though, we do have James Franklin on deck. I know Reed has some feelings about James Franklin. I do have him as a rock solid hire. This is one that has a lot of coaching experience at the power conference level. I couldn't put him as a home run hire because he did get fired. But this was someone that did lead Penn State to at least some Big Ten championship appearances, did win a Big Ten title in 2016, led them to the college football playoff in 2024 as well, won a couple of games. He was fired though, so it can't be a home run hire, but for me, it feels rock solid though.
Why you gotta do him dirty like that? Why? Because he was fired. I mean, nah, I'm just kidding. This is a multi-base hit hire. I graded him as an A just solely because he's one of few coaches that are active right now to win over 100 games in his career, 104-45, which is a near 700 win percentage as a head coach. So you can't overlook that. In 12 seasons at Penn State, yeah, you can look at his bowl record. He went 6-6 in bowl games. Big freaking whoop. One Big Ten championship in 2 appearances. Oh, big freaking whoop. The dude consistently won 9, 10, 11 games a season. Brought them to their first playoff appearance. Won 2 playoff games. I don't care if it's against SMU and Boise State. That's the committee's fault. Penn State just played the schedule played the format that was dealt to them. That is not their fault. So consistently getting top 15, top 10 recruiting classes, brought in the top 10 recruiting class to Virginia Tech, notably flipping 11 players from Penn State. Numerous staffers followed him to Blacksburg. I think he's still at the top of his coaching game. Virginia Tech is going to be back competing for the ACC within 2 years. Mark my words. You can clip it, put it in the hype videos. I do not care. Virginia Tech is going to be back with Franklin at the helm. Does it suck as a Penn State guy myself to watch James Franklin, his tenure end the way that it did? Yeah, it sucked in the moment. Of course it did. We lost to freaking Northwestern at home, but I digress. James Franklin is going to do great things at Virginia Tech. This, for me, is a home run hire, but multi-base I'm cool with.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm really curious to see what that Virginia Tech is, because I know what we're planning on doing here as we get closer to spring ball is pushing out our first look like ACC rankings. Yeah. So I'm very curious to see where we as a group end up landing on Virginia Tech when that time comes. Mm-hmm. But more to come on that. For now, we got Jason Candle on the mic. Jason Candle, he knows how to win the G5. He's coming from Toledo, won some MAC titles. I had him as a rock solid hire, though. I didn't think it was a home run hire because he doesn't have any ties to the northeastern part of the country. Connecticut's a little bit more unique in the sense of UConn is more of a basketball-oriented school than Toledo, so I'm curious to see how he handles that. But I do think it's a really good hire because we have seen Jason Candle win at the G5 level, but I couldn't make it a home run hire at the same time just because he doesn't have those ties to the northeastern part of the country. And it's a unique place in Connecticut.
Yeah, totally. We can't overlook that he's the winningest coach in Toledo history with 81 wins. We can't overlook that. 2 MAC titles in 2017 and 2022 basically took Toledo to being the top dog in the MAC, or at least one of the top dogs in the MAC. But to go from Toledo to UConn, I feel like I graded it as an A- solely because you're going from the Jim Mora era at UConn, where he brought you to multiple winning seasons, one of your best seasons in recent memory this past year in 2025, with dynamic offense. So I feel like out of anywhere they could have gone, this is a really, really good hire for UConn, and I feel like they're going to pick up right where they left off with Jim Moore leaving. So I'm good with rock solid. Go with rock solid. Yeah. I view it personally a little higher, but just solely because they could have gone way worse. And to land on Jason Candle, I feel like is a really underrated hire for UConn.
Yeah, and I think he is capable of leaving off where Jim Mora left off with that UConn football team. And Jim Mora did a fantastic job of turning around UConn, which historically has been a pretty difficult place to win at from a football perspective. It's going to be interesting to see if Jason Candle can continue to carry the torch though moving forward. As speaking of Jim Mora, he just happens to be like next on the tier maker list. I really thought about putting him as a home run hire. I really thought about it. Man, it's tough. It's tough. You know what? I'm screw my notes. I'm going with Jim Mora as a home run hire. He's found a way to win it at UConn. He knows how to win the G5 level. He's got ties out there, like in the West Coast. He's someone that's coached in a lot of different places. So I'm going against the notes that I have. I'm going to put it to the side for Jim Mora because we were just talking about him while talking about Jason Candle. He's a home run hire. That was an incredible hire for Colorado State.
Yeah. I've graded it at a B. So probably like that multi-base hit hire I'm cool with. Again, another coach we're talking about recency bias with, to take a program like UConn to the heights that he did, winning 8, 9, 10 games a season, it's not an easy thing to do. So I think Colorado State got a steal of a head coach. The only knock I'm giving, and this is only in the immediate future with Jim Moore at the helm, we have no idea what that roster is going to be, and they were something to watch last year. So he's definitely got a lot of rebuilding to do, but he's proven to have done that at UConn. So Colorado State took that risk, and I'm cool with this being a multi-base hit hire just solely because of that recency bias. He's proven to be a program rebuilder, and I think he has a chance to do that again.
Yeah, and I mean, Colorado State, they were certainly one of the teams to watch like over the course of the 2025 football season. One of the arguably bigger disappointments that we saw in the Mountain West. I mean, San Jose will probably like to have the word on that, but Colorado State equally, they were just as disappointing, and they were just as hard to watch. Definitely harder to watch and harder on the eyes as Tulane football was last year, though. Tulane being quite the opposite, with John Summerall leading them to the college football playoff as the Tulane head coach. Now the head coach of the Florida Gators taking over for Billy Napier, who was obviously fired. I did have this one's a rock solid hire for Florida, seeing as he does understand the SEC footprint. He does know how to win, obviously, leading Tulane to the American title. Coaching the SEC and winning consistently in the SEC, that's a different story. He does have experience in doing that, but I think it's a very good hire, and I certainly think it's rock solid for the Florida Gators.
I view this as a multi-base hit hire just solely because even going back to his time at Troy before Tulane, 23-4, 852 win percentage, and back-to-back Sun Belt championships at Troy. I mean, like, come on. And then to go to Tulane, 19-7, 10-2 campaign last year, American Conference title, brought him to the playoff. Like, dude is a proven winner. Dude is a proven winner. So I view this as a multi-base hit hire solely because I think to go from Billy Napier, who is the definition of mediocre, to getting a above average to potentially to be a top tier coach in the sport, and John Summerall, and he has history down in the Southeast as well. So I think it's a great hire for him. And I personally just like him as a coach in general. I just think he's a great head coach.
Yeah, and I'm sure if he's able to at least accomplish 75% of what he accomplished at Tulane and did at Florida, that's a successful coaching tenure, at least in my eyes, compared to what we saw in those inconsistencies during the Billy Napier era. Which, speaking of Billy Napier and his now presence in the G5, we got another G5 team on deck. Kirby Moore, he's taking over as the head coach at Washington State. I have this as kind of a meh hire. I wasn't as high in him as like some of these other hires. He does have ties to Pacific Northwest, which I think that's nice to have. But at the same time, I look at Kirby Moore. He's a first-time head coach, so I don't know what to expect from him as a head coach. I do think having ties in that part of the country and understanding what Pullman is helps. But because he is a first-time head coach, I don't know what to expect. So I went with Med here.
I'm also cool with Met. I put it at a B minus, and I was teetering on a C plus, just solely because his experience as a coordinator um, wasn't real. I mean, it wasn't anything to like be wowed about, I would say. So I'm cool with this being a meh. We'll see how it works out for Washington State. They kind of went outside the box with this one, if I'm being honest. So I'm cool. I'm cool with Washington State, in this hire. I'm cool with Kirby Moore being a meh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Kirby Moore does end up being a meh for Washington State. On the other hand, Kyle Whittingham, one of the bigger splashes that we saw during the coaching carousel. I am going to put him as a multi-base hit like type of hire. I thought being able to secure a experienced head coach and one that's had so much success at Utah. I think is going to really help stabilize the Michigan program after what we saw from them in the course of the debacle with Sharon Moore. Really, the only thing that's holding me back in terms of making this a home run hire at the same time, though, is that he has zero ties to the Midwest, and particularly the state of Michigan, which I think should matter to a degree. I still think this is a very strong hire, though, and so I'm willing to go multi-base hit for the man.
I thought we were really going to get the first one, get the ball over the wall. I really thought we were going to get someone trotting around the bases with this one. To go through what Michigan went through with Sharon Moore and the whole situation that happened there, to backdoor their way into a top 10 coach in the sport is unbelievable. Unbelievable. 22 years at Utah, 177 and 88, 11-6 in postseason play, two-time Pac-12 coach of the year, 9 AP top 25 finishes with Utah. Like that, it doesn't get much better than that unless your name is Nick Saban. So, or Kirby Smart. So this is a slam dunk hire. This is like a 360 windmill, like slam dunk contest type hire for Michigan. So the literal only knock I had on him was he's on the older side. He's 66 years old. So how long he is going to be in Ann Arbor, time will tell. But if you could bring that program back to stability from Sharon Moore, bring them back competing in the Big Ten at a minimum, it's an A grade hire. It's a home run hire for me.
Yeah, and he was number one of those guys that I thought about putting him as a home run hire too, but just him being a little bit on the older side, so I don't know if he's someone that's going to be able to get there long term, as well as the lack of ties in the Midwest. That's why I couldn't get there, but I understand why someone would have him as a home run hire. But I do think we will get the ball over the wall tonight because we do have Lane Kiffin, and I need people to go ahead and put their feelings aside. We got to have an adult conversation about this one. I think we agree that how Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss, he did Ole Miss dirty, and I didn't necessarily love how Lane Kiffin handled himself in that move.
Mm-hmm.
But
if
we're talking about this from a football perspective, he knows how to win in the SEC. So for me, I do have Lane Kiffin as a home run hire because he's proven that he can win in the SEC. And he took Ole Miss to really their greatest season of all time in the program's history.
Without a doubt. Lane Kiffin is a home run hire. Also solely because his talent acquisition has been unbelievable at a school like Ole Miss that isn't necessarily known for producing the best, like NFL level talent. For Lane Kiffin to consistently put out, top tier talent out of Ole Miss. And again, like you said, Jake, to bring them to the best season that they've had ever in the school's history. 11 wins, national semifinalists, like that's unbelievable. So Lane Kiffin for LSU, A++, S+ tier hire, like whatever you want to call it. It's an amazing hire. Agreed, it didn't go down in the best circumstances, but for LSU fans, you got to be ecstatic. Top ranked portal class, numerous 5 stars and 4 stars coming through your door. You're throwing all the money out at them. Like your staff is getting an upgrade through Lane Kiffin, bringing everyone with him from Ole Miss. Not everyone, but a good chunk of the coaches from Ole Miss with him. So, yeah, home run hire for LSU.
Yeah, and you talked about that talent acquisition piece as well. Louisiana is a very talent-rich state.
Oh, yeah.
So he is in a position to where, while he's still phenomenal at getting players in through the transfer portal, he is also at a place where he doesn't necessarily have to rely on the portal as much now, given the amount of high school talent that's in Louisiana. Whereas Mississippi, not that it's poor in talent at the high school level, is just not at the same level as a Louisiana, if that makes sense. So yeah, I had to put Lane Kiffin as a home run hire. Putting aside my feelings about how I feel about that situation, I didn't love how he handled it, but that was an incredible hire. And if I was LSU, I would have done the same thing.
Yep. I mean,
so we're getting into the back half of this this tier maker in terms of how we feel about all these coaches, man. We got Mark Carney on deck. He is the head coach of Kent State. He was the interim coach all of last year. He's been elevated to the actual head coach, the permanent head coach. I wasn't mad here. I thought it was fine. He did a good job in terms of surpassing expectations. It was a nice rally around the flag last year for Kent State, getting to that 5-7. I believe they won the Wagon Wheel, which is a very important rivalry game up there in Northeast Ohio. I'm worried about his ability to retain talent long term, though, because they did lose a fair amount of talent in the transfer portal. In Cade Wofford, the most notable of guys leaving. He's now heading off to Cincinnati, another Ohio school. So I'm concerned about his long-term ability of keeping Kent State out of the basement, but I thought he did well enough to at least be okay with it as a permanent hire. I just have to see more long-term.
I totally agree here. To take a school like Kent State and win 5 games is levels they haven't seen in forever. So any coach that can do that is worthy of, getting the full-time job. Again, long-term, time will obviously tell with that, but Mark Carney, totally agree. See it as a Matt. I viewed it as a B just solely because, again, Kent State seeing 5 wins in football is something they never see. So yeah, I'm cool with Mark Carney in the meh category.
Yeah, and it is possible to win at Kent State. Don't get me wrong, because Sean Lewis was able to find a way to have a good amount of success. Had them as a somewhat consistent winner before he ended up leaving to become the offensive coordinator briefly at Colorado under Prime, and then now being the head coach at San Diego State and being there for a few years. So it is possible to win at Kent State. It has happened. But I'm curious to see what Mark Carney does now that we start to see that rally around the flag effect start to wear off, given what happened with Kenny Burns being fired late in the coaching carousel cycle last year.
For sure.
Yeah. One coach that we won't have to necessarily worry about that is Matt Campbell rolling into town. I wanted to go with a multi-base hit hire just because he's never won the Big 12. He hasn't led his team to the college football playoff. But I do want to commend him, though, on his ability to take a program like Iowa State, where that has been one of the more difficult places to win at historically, and turn them into a consistent winner. Couldn't get them over the top, couldn't get them to win a conference title or lead them to a playoff or anything like that, which is why I couldn't make them a home run hire. But I do think this is a multi-base hit type of hire. He's an incredible coach, that's for sure.
I mean, this is kind of similar to the Michigan situation, how they backdoored their way with Kyle Whittingham. Penn State going on a coaching search for over 50 days for Matt Campbell, who should have been one of the very first phone calls that they gave, is unreal. I think he should have been in the first group of coaches you're reaching out to. to take, again, like you prefaced, Jake, to take a program like Iowa State, who is historically, very, very subpar at best, and to take them to multiple winning seasons, the best season they've also seen in school history with 11 wins and making the first Big 12 championship game in the school's history. Like, it's levels they've never seen before. So I think to take a program at that level, it's definitely going to be a rebuilding process at Penn State, or you could say the Penn State Cyclones, bringing all the talent from Iowa State. So
Iowa State and NU Lions.
yeah, exactly. Whatever you fancy. Yeah, exactly. So Matt Campbell, I graded it as an A. I am ecstatic as a Penn State fan and supporter to have Matt Campbell as our next head coach. I think, again, it should have been one of the first phone calls we gave for our head coaching spot. So definitely multi-base with the potential to be a home run hire. Time will tell, though.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see if Matt Campbell can succeed at Penn State. Again, one of those like really good hire. We'll see if it works out for him. Or it could be one of those situations where he's a complete flop and gets fired in 3 to 5 years. You truly never know. I know you're not rooting for that, but hey.
You're only speaking for yourself when you say that.
Hey, listen, I don't know what you're talking about. But all right. Next coach that we do have on deck, we got Mike Jacobs, now taking over as head coach of Toledo, coming from Mercer, one of the better FCS programs. I thought this was an out-of-box hire. I thought it was an interesting hire. I went with Matt just because I haven't seen him coach at the FBS level. Doesn't have really particularly strong ties to the Midwest. Did a great job at Mercer, but winning in the SoCon and winning consistently in the FBS ranks, it's different. So I went with Matt here. I'm intrigued by Mike Jacobs.
I mean, kind of similar to Bob Chesney's resume. He's done it at multiple stops at multiple different levels. Mercer, Lenore Rhine, and Notre Dame College in Ohio. You know that, Jake? You know that? School,
I do. That place is now closed down.
Yes, they are. I took a visit on there before college. Anyway,
I did. You too?
Yeah.
I remember getting a scholarship offer from their track program, and then a funny story about Notre Dame College. They actually provided my girlfriend at the time a scholarship too, as a way to kind of honeypot their way. She was not college caliber, bless her heart.
Anyway, Mike Jacobs has proven it on multiple different levels at the Division I and Division II levels, and so 94-23 record overall. I think I view this as an above average hire, just solely because he has a proven track record of getting it done at multiple places, multiple levels. So time will tell with Toledo, but I think if he sustains what's been successful for him so far at his previous stops, I don't see why he can't be successful at Toledo. So I graded it as a B+, so I'm perfectly good with an above average grade.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see how he does at the FBS level, which is why I couldn't go personally higher. I'm intrigued by it though. I'm hoping that it works out. Toledo's been a good program as well, but the type of program that has underachieved the last couple of years. So we'll see if Mike Jacobs can reverse that trend moving forward. Another person that's trying to redeem themselves and try to get that underachieving logo off their back, Neil Brown. Neil Brown is a head coach, ladies and gentlemen, once again. This time he is coaching at North Texas, which you guys remember his last stop. He got fired from West Virginia, and then his 1-year hiatus, he was a special assistant to Steve Sarkisian. Not a coordinator, not a position coach.
An advisor.
Basically the equivalent of the assistant to the regional manager, not assistant regional manager, right? So for Neil Brown, I have questions because we have seen him win in the past, back in his time in Troy, but that was almost a decade ago. I don't know if he's someone that's still capable of being a quality head coach in the NIL and transfer portal landscape. Because now we've seen a few years of him being a head coach in that kind of environment, and he just hasn't been that great. So I actually have questions about how he's going to do it in North Texas moving forward.
I'm also in the meh to I have questions category. I'm cool with I have questions. You can put him there because basing this off his Troy resume, he was pretty good. 35-16, Sun Belt Championship in 2017, gets hired to West Virginia, and it's pretty mediocre, all things considered. 37-35. The best record he had in his tenure was 9-4 in 2023. So taking over a program like North Texas, who has seen winning over the past 2 years with Eric Morris at the helm, it's going to be a change of scenery, especially because you're taking over a team that lost, I don't know the exact production number, but let's just say 70% of their production from last season on both sides of the ball. You're losing that as Eric Morris took that to Oklahoma State. So it's an uphill battle for Neil Brown at North Texas. I graded it as a C, also because of the recency bias that I said. He wasn't great at West Virginia, all things considered. He was a pretty average to below average head coach. So I think this was just they threw a dart at the board and his name was the dart they landed on. So we'll see.
Whether that's a bullseye or whatever that was, probably like on the edge of the board that only counts for like a few points. We'll wait and see.
I feel like it might have even been like the black border around the actual. Never mind.
Also, can we talk about how Neil Brown has a like more like face spacing than like his coverages? I didn't expect Neil Brown to look like that. I had to get it off my chest because I saw that putting the graphic together earlier today.
Jeez, we're out here flaming coaches now. This might come back to bite us in the ass at some point.
Yeah, I love the North Texas like contingent though. I had a good time with those guys last fall. I was just curious about that. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who saw that. But yes. We got Pat Fitzgerald. He's your now head coach at Michigan State. I went with rock solid here for Pat Fitzgerald. I think he did a really good job in his time at Northwestern. But the last couple of years at Northwestern, he did fall off. They struggled to win games his last couple of years, going just a 4-20 record in his last 2 years. Mental math is hard, read. Don't do it. And then also with the hazing allegations, that doesn't necessarily help either. I think it's a good hire. I don't know if it's a great hire though.
I'm in this was tough because I graded it as a C. So I guess you could put above average, but it's like at the bottom rung of above average. Yeah, I mean 110 and 101 in 17 seasons at Northwestern. Goodness gracious. He must love Chicago. Two 10-win seasons. Okay. Those were the peaks of his time at Northwestern. But this is Michigan State. They've been to the near summit before. So is Pat Fitzgerald the guy to really get them back to the peaks that they want to get to? I'm not entirely sure at the moment. 55th ranked portal class coming in his first year. Time will obviously tell. Cam Edwards is a steal at running back. I will tell you that, coming from UConn. So I guess we'll see with Pat Fitzgerald, but I'm kind of indifferent about this one just solely because he doesn't have experience in the NIL era. He was out at Northwestern before that took place, or at least got, to the point that it's at now. So yeah, I'm cool with anywhere between above average and meh for Pat Fitzgerald.
Yeah, and I do want to say for Pat Fitzgerald before we keep moving forward is I know that the record doesn't look too terribly impressive, only 9 games above 500 after 17 years. But at the same time, Northwestern has been one of the more difficult places to win at. And this man lived and breathed Northwestern, dating back to when he played as a player. at that program as well. So the 110 and 101 record doesn't look that impressive on paper, but given how tough it can be to win there at times, that's actually pretty good, all things considered. Again, some of the off the field stuff does hold me back a little bit, but it's it's a solid hire. It's not a liquid or a gas, but it's a solid hire.
That's crazy. That's crazy. It's not a liquid or a gas. It's a solid hire. I'll have to use that one.
Yeah, there you go. Got just dropping like knowledge for the kids here on this Thursday night.
Wow.
Pete Golding, on the other hand, I actually do have him as a solid hire as well. So normally when it comes to first time head coaches going through their first full season, I would normally put in a meh category because we don't know what they're going to be in terms of running an operation long term. Because we saw Pete Golding win multiple playoff games after Lane Kiffin left for LSU, notably beating Georgia, which that's really hard to do. You know, Kirby Smart is usually not the type of team that's going to beat itself. You're going to have to go and beat them. And to Pete Golding's credit, he did beat them. So normally for a first-time head coach, I would kind of venture more towards the med tier. But because he does have those college football playoff wins on their resume, I'm going to give him a little bit more benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say it's a rock-solid hire, and also to help retain at least some Zen wins on the roster, keeping Trinidad Chambliss and keeping Keon Lacey on your team too.
Above average?
That's fair.
I was I was a decent bit lower on Pete Golding solely because he does, I mean, and it's not, his resume is nothing too crazy. Like, yeah, former Alabama assistant. Okay. There's been numerous Alabama assistants that haven't really gone on to do amazing things. And also because I have a theory that a lot of the success he saw in the playoffs with Ole Miss were because he has a quarterback named Trinidad Chambliss that is a one of one. And he also had an offensive coordinator that is no longer with him. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see with Pete Golding, but I feel like Ole Miss is gonna dip down to earth a little bit under his tenure.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely fair if you want to put him in that kind of meh area, just because this is going to be his first full season running an actual operation. And, you know, again, also seeing that rally around the flag effect wear off too. But, you know, again, because of the fact he did beat Georgia, which is not a lot of coaches can do that regardless of the amount of talent that they have on their roster. Lane Kiffin couldn't do it. You know, he had the same guys too. I'm at least willing to give Pete Golding a little bit more benefit of a doubt than maybe your average first-time head coach at the power conference level.
Yeah, he's also the first head coach to openly and knowingly tamper with a player.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
All right. So that takes us to Ryan Beard. Ryan Beard now coaching up Coastal Carolina. The Chanticleers getting a taste of that teal field for the very first time. One of the more interesting fields in college football for sure. I went with rock solid hire here for Ryan Beard. I really appreciated how he was able to handle that transition from the FCS to the FBS at Missouri State, leading them to the prestigious Xbox Bowl as well. You know, what a bowl that does have the potential to become an institution if it continues to market itself properly. I mean, they had the Halo, you know,
Master Chief out there.
Yeah, Master Chief, man.
Yeah.
So I went with rock solid because he's proven at this point he can win at the G5 level. And also how he was able to handle Missouri State's transition into the FBS ranks.
I'm going to go with above average here. I feel like Ryan Beard is, I agree, Jake. He's a proven track record, especially from transitioning to FCS to the FBS. But this is a rebuild with Coastal Carolina. This is a full-on rebuild. So how he manages that type of environment and roster building and retention and everything like that, time will tell. I graded it as a B minus solely because he does have the upside of rebuilding Coastal Carolina to being a fairly solid program again. So I'm going with a B minus. So above average is good for me.
Yeah, and to be fair, you could also argue that for Missouri State's, it was a little bit of a challenge in terms of getting themselves FBS ready from a defensive standpoint. That was a defense prior to them joining the FBS in 2024. They were giving up 30 points a game, getting the majority of their games against FCS level competition. And for him to be able to elevate it, it wasn't an elite unit by any means, but it was competent enough to where they were still able to win games. And in a couple instances, they were able to win because of their defense, not in spite of their defense. And also for Coastal Carolina, it's a rebuild for their standards, but it's not, I wouldn't say a full-fledged rebuild. They are coming off a year where they did make it to a bowl game. It's just compared to what Coastal Carolina has been used to, notably in the early 2020s, where they were ranked a handful of times and getting into those CFP top 25 rankings. I don't. It's going to be a rebuild, sure, but I don't think it's going to be as much of a rebuild as I think people think it's going to be.
Yeah, for sure. I might have overstepped a little bit, but it's definitely going to be a bigger challenge, I think, than Missouri State was.
Yeah. Someone that is definitely going to have a rebuild is Ryan Silverfield on his hands. He's going to be taking over a 2-10 Arkansas's team, even though that is arguably one of the best offenses that we're ever going to see on a 2-10 football team last year. That offense was incredible. It's just that their defense might have been better off if you and I were playing on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm dead serious when I say that. At least we would put together a better resume on EA college football, but I digress. I do have Ryan Silverfield as a solid hire. He did a nice job at Memphis. He understands the SEC footprint, that's for me, that's really important when it comes to Arkansas football. But haven't seen him win at the power conference level as a head coach, so I couldn't make him a home run hire. But I do think it's going to be a rock solid hire. I like what Arkansas did.
I also think it's a rock solid hire. He has the resume of an offensive line coach by background, so I think that's going to benefit to Arkansas. He has an offensive background, so if he can at least carry on some of that offensive prowess that they had last year. They are losing players from that dynamic offense that they had last year. So, but I think he's being a proven winner at the G5 level. I think will translate potentially to Arkansas. Now, yeah, you weren't kidding. They were bad last year. They were bad. So, yeah, time will tell. Yeah, time will tell. I graded it as a B minus higher.
Yeah, but yeah, they're definitely cheek. So I mean, if Ryan Silver can figure out that defense, he's got some offensive players he can work with.
That's all he's got to do. Figure out the defense.
But you don't even need to be an elite defense. Just
literally be like average defense. Like just be middle of the pack.
Yeah, even if they were below average, Arkansas would have won a handful of SEC games, which is crazy to think about. Not even asking them to be good, just don't be horrific. So that would be the biggest challenge, I think, for Ryan Silverfield for sure. But Tosh Lepoivo, that man knows how to coach a defense, though.
Yes, he does.
He had a really good defense at Oregon. He's not at Oregon no more. He's at Cal. I have him as my sleeper pick in the ACC. I think that's a team to really watch out for with what he's able to retain and the work he's been able to do. I think it's a rock solid hire. He knows how to coach in the college football playoff. It's his first time coaching, so we'll see how he handles it. But I really like Joshua Boyd, and I love the fit of Cal.
This is a multi-base hit higher. Experience at Alabama, Washington, multiple NFL teams. Not to mention this is his alma mater, so he knows exactly what needs to happen at Cal for them to be a winning program again. And something that I think it came out either I saw it today or yesterday. He did an interview. I think it was with Andy Staples of On3. He got hired by Cal. Literally got on a plane within the first 12 hours of being hired to Hawaii to talk to Jaron Kiawe Sagapolatele or JKS and, convince him to stay at Cal, which, I mean, if that doesn't prove, this guy's committed, he wants Cal back to the heights of the Marshawn Lynch days, Deshaun Jackson, like this dude's legit. And he knows how to coach a defense, that's for sure. And he's able to hang on to his stud quarterback. So this is a multi-base hit higher. I agree, Jake. They are definitely going to be a sleeper in the ACC this year and for years to come during his tenure.
Yeah, especially finding a way to keep JSC, man. Like that is a special football player. So
yes.
and he knows defense too. So I think again, one of those players and one of those coaches that's good hire. Don't know if it's going to work out.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone ever knows. I have a good inkling on this next coach. I don't think that this is going to be a guy that's going to get the ball over the fence. I don't think that this is a guy that is going to get on base and hit a double or a triple.
He's not going to be a guy?
I don't think he's going to be a guy that is even going to get on base in the first place. I don't think this is a guy that should get a chance to bat as a head coach.
Facts. DFA him.
Because Will Hall, 11-40 at Southern Miss. And listen, people are going to tell me, hey, he was part of the staff that had Tulane go to the college football playoff. He was a passing game coordinator. He wasn't even a coordinator for the whole offense. He was in charge for half of it.
Yeah.
He was in charge for half of it. It's basically the assistant to the offensive coordinator. That's like being a third string coordinator. Okay? How this man backdoor and kind of failed his way up into this job is beyond me. So we haven't used this tier tonight.
Yes.
But it's got to, if it's not used for this guy, I don't know. It's not going to be used at all. Will Hall, head coach of Tulane. What are we doing?
What are we doing? Oh boy, I feel like Tulane just sat. I feel like the athletic department sat all their coaches in a room, said, "Do any of you guys want to be the head coach?" And this was the only guy that put his hand up. You're like, I will volunteer as tribute to be the head coach.
And I could see it as one of those situations where like the AD is looking around. He's pretending to see that the hand is not raised. He's like, does anyone want to be the head coach? And then the presidential council at Tulane, they got together. They gave a big sigh. Like, all right, it's your time to shine.
Yeah, Tulane, this is how you follow up John Summerall, one of the best head coaches in your school's history. This is how you follow it up. I get it. He has experience as an actual coordinator when he was at LSU, but this is, yeah, you said it. 11-40 record at Southern Miss, was fired in the middle of his fourth season. Like, I'd graded it as a D-. So
yeah,
Tulane, what are we doing?
What are we doing? And it's not even Charles Huff just proved that it's not that hard to win at Southern Miss.
No. But he did bring, what was it, like 50 players with him?
But still, Will Huff could have used the transfer portal too.
Yeah.
Or Will Hall.
Yeah.
the fact that Charles Huff had almost as many wins, and not even a full season, because he left before the bowl game, as Will
Yeah.
Hall did in 4 years.
Not even 3.5.
Yeah. So that what are we doing? Let's move on before I get razzled up. We're moving on. Will Stein, we know what we were doing.
Oh yeah.
He got ties to the state of Kentucky. He got college football playoff experience. First time head coach. So we'll see how he handles it. But I do keep the faith. I think it's a rock solid hire. I would even teeter on multi-base hit too, because I really like Will Stein here. Just want to see how he handles this as being in charge of the whole operation versus just being in charge of the offense.
Multi-base for sure. If it's nothing, if you don't even look at his resume, if it's anything to go by, just look at former Oregon coordinators under Dan Lanning, namely Kenny Dillingham, and look what he's doing now. So yeah, Will Stein, one of the best offensive minds in all of college football right now, gets his chance to be a first-time head coach in the SEC, which, whew, that's the conference you want to go into for a first-time head coaching job. But I think Kentucky gets a steal as a head coach, bringing a top 15 portal class. So he's already getting the recognition from players outside the program. Kentucky, stuff can get wild at night in Lexington. That's all I'm going to say. Just remember that.
Yeah, and we seen like Kentucky being able to compete with some of the big dogs and nearly put them down and put them out the pasture. So Kentucky, even though they haven't had a ton of success the last couple of years, they're still a feisty football team. That's for sure. We'll see about some of these other programs that we're going to get into. Just a few left. Morgan Scully of Utah taking over after. Well, we thought Kyle Whittingham was going to retire, and then 5 minutes later, he decides, "Oh, I'm going to be the head coach at Michigan." I went mad here just because he's been at the program for a really long time, but he's never been the guy running the show. He's been helping Kyle Whittingham be that right-hand man. Never really seen him as a head coach, so I went mad here.
Yeah, Morgan Scalley's he's been in the wings for a while, waiting for this job to be his, and it finally is. I think something in the upside for him in his first year is he does retain his starting quarterback, which is always a plus. He does retain Devon Dampier as his quarterback, so that's a plus for him. I think it's one of these coaches, again, that was not a former coordinator, but was the coordinator on the staff prior. So is this another situation of, does he take a step back from being the primary defensive play caller and, allows someone else to be the main play caller? Is that one of those situations here? So I think Utah is one of those wild card teams coming into this season specifically. We know what they are on paper, but they did lose a couple pieces following Whittingham to Michigan and also transferring out elsewhere. So Utah's a wild card team for me. But Scalley individually, I put as a B-. So I'm good with the meh, just mainly because we don't really know how it's going to be with him as a full-time head coach.
Yeah, and there's certainly a handful of first-time head coaches here. We get into our last few coaches that we're going to talk about here tonight. Colin Klein is certainly one of them. Former Heisman Trophy candidate back in the early 2010s. Some great years at Kansas State as a player. Seen him as a head offensive coordinator most recently at Texas A&M, part of helping with Marcel Reed continue to develop and helping Mike Elko make the college football playoff in his second year at Texas A&M. Now getting his first, possibly only head coaching opportunity because he returns to his alma mater. So for Colin Klein, because he has that college football playoff experience, he's back at his alma mater. Couldn't go higher than rock solid because it's a first time head coach again, but I can give a little bit more benefit of the doubt given some of the other contexts.
I think this is a very great fit, not even just because this is his alma mater. I'm going multi-base here solely because I think his style of play calling will fit well to the Kansas State, personnel that they currently have and what they can build around. You have to think they were running an RPO based system at A&M with Marcel Reed. So you have to think Avery Johnson, mobile quarterback, has to get better with his arm, can be turnover prone at times. Sounds like Marcel Reed to me. So as long as he takes the same principles he had at Texas A&M and just fixes some of Avery Johnson's tweaks, Colin Klein could be, the next, great coach at Kansas State. I think he's solely, if you even base it off his playing days at Kansas State, you have to give him a chance as your head coach. He's one of the best players in your school's history. So definitely, I definitely think it's a multi-base hit hire just solely because there's a ton of upside with this hire. There's a lot of potential here.
Hey, what can I say? Will Stein, Colin Klein.
Yeah, I looked at the tiers, and he was right next to him. I mean, just look at that smile of him holding the UK helmet. Like, yeah,
a happy man.
I'm sure he's a happy man with the paycheck he got. I'm sure he is.
Yeah, someone that is also happy for a slightly bigger paycheck, I would imagine, is Jimmy Rogers, who took over at Iowa State after Matt Campbell did leave for Penn State. He was at Washington State for one whole year. So he does have a little bit of head coaching experience at the FBS level. I went meh here because he does have coaching experience at the FBS level at Washington State. But to be honest, he was fine at Washington State. Wasn't a special season by any means. He has guys playing hard, but the wins and losses should matter. And it doesn't have a ton of ties to the area either.
Mm-hmm.
He does have ties to the Midwest, just from his South Dakota State days, but
yeah,
I wasn't excited about the hire. I thought it was okay, so I kind of went meh here.
I had it as a rock solid hire, so if we could put him in above average, his South Dakota State days, he was really good. He was on the 2022 staff where they won their first FCS title, took over in 2023 as the head coach, went 15-0 and won back-to-back FCS national championships. So if that's anything to go off of, he has a ton of upside. Granted, the 1 year at Washington State wasn't anything, spectacular, but for Iowa State, to have to replace Matt Campbell kind of abruptly, they hired him within, I think it was within 24 hours. Like, they hired him pretty quickly. Like, they were set if Matt Campbell was out the door that they knew their follow-up. So I think there's a ton of upside with this hire, similar to Colin Klein. I think Jimmy Rogers has the pedigree to doing it at multiple levels, namely at a powerhouse like South Dakota State. If he's able to replicate some of the success there, even minimally, to Iowa State, which again, historically, Iowa State has been a mediocre to below average program. So if he's able to replicate even some of that, it's an above average hire, and he goes down as, a pretty good head coach in Iowa State's history.
Yeah. So I'm just curious to see, and I'm also worried about him being a little bit more of a job hopper. Just because he was only at Washington State for a year, and then immediately bolting. So it's something I'm concerned about, and I'm not overly excited about what he's brought in versus what he lost in the transfer portal either. So, and he's going to be replacing Matt Campbell too, which that's some pretty big shoes to fill as well. But I mean, it could work out. There could be that upside that you're talking about. I don't know. I personally wasn't too excited about the hire.
Yeah, I think most of my basis was solely off his South Dakota State days. You can't really take the Washington State year because he was there 1 year. So you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt, at least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I can smell what you're stepping in. I hear you. Um, we are down to our last three coaches. One of them is the new head coach of Ohio after some funny business happened with our last head coach. We won't get too deep into why Brian Smith was fired. You can
No, we
Google
won't.
that.
We won't get too deep in that. You're right. We will not.
John Holzer did lead the Ohio Bobcats. He was on the staff last year. Was the interim head coach in the bowl game. Did win the bowl game. I went May here just because again, first time head coach. You only saw him coach the bowl game. I honestly really don't know what to expect.
I agree. I'm in the meh. I gave a C grade. I mean, I'm just going off his resume. Was an assistant at Miami of Ohio, co-defensive coordinator, 2019 conference title at Miami of Ohio, and then went to Ohio. So, yeah, this is kind of a shot in the dark, if anything, for Ohio. They kind of are just taking a chance on a guy that was already on the staff. So, I mean, time will tell for the Bobcats for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we just have to wait. He's coached one game, so I just genuinely don't know what to expect. And if he cleans up the culture as well, given what the head coach got away with, is there a culture issue because this is now Ohio's third coach in the last 3 years? So that's something to also monitor as well. But I don't think there's going to be as many questions as the next coach, who we know is incredible to answer. MC Hammer would agree. Head coach, we'll see about that though. We do have Alonzo Carter, which I almost didn't include him in the tier maker, but I realize Sacramento State is an FBS member now, so we gotta count him as a FBS new hire. Alonzo Carter, on the other hand, though, he is going to be a first-time head coach, and not only is he going to be a first-time head coach, he is taking over at a pivotal point in Sacramento State's football history with the transition from the FCS to the FBS level. So it's a pivotal time, and I don't know if Alonzo Carter is going to be the right person for that, because I would personally like to have someone more experienced when it comes to those kind of transitions. So I have questions. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm a little bit more skeptical than many of the other hires that we talked about earlier tonight.
I also have questions, just solely because we don't know what we're going to get out of Alonzo Carter. Has great history, and everything has been said about him as an assistant coach and a running back coach primarily. He's done great things at his previous stops as an assistant. So will that translate to being a head coach at now the FBS level? I think that's just too much transition at one time. You're going new head coach, new staff, player, turnover. You're going into a whole new conference, a whole new division of football. Like, it's just too much turnover one time, to be honest. So there's definitely questions. I feel like they should have gone, if they were planning on this FBS jump this whole time, they should have gone with someone that was more, established at the FBS level, at least somewhat. So there's definitely tons of questions surrounding Sacramento State. So I'm good with Alonzo Carter being in this category.
Yeah, and I mean Saxon and Mac it's going to be an interesting era. We'll see if we get some interesting conference games, notably with Ball State or with UMass. We'll see if Sacramento State draws either of those teams for purposes of trying to keep it a little bit more family friendly here on the show. We'll see. I'll just leave it at that.
We need it.
We do have one more coach. We got the last coach that we have. He is your new head coach at Stanford. Tavita Pritchard was the quarterbacks coach for the Washington Commanders. To be fair, he has spent a lot of time around Stanford, not only as a player, but as a coach before becoming the quarterbacks coach for the Washington Commanders. I went May here because I don't know what to expect from him as a first-time head coach. I'm curious what you think of the guy, though.
For me, this is a classic. What are we doing, Andrew Luck? What are we doing? This guy has no experience, relatively close to being a head coach. He hasn't even been a coordinator. So the fact that we're just going off of, oh, he's a Stanford alum. He played quarterback here. I played quarterback here. We can relate, pretty well. That's not how a head coaching hire works, Andrew Luck. So all respect to Andrew Luck as the Stanford GM, but this is a bad hire, at least at the moment. Let me restate, at the moment, this is a bad hire solely because again, there's no experience on his resume to being a coordinator, a co-coordinator, a special analyst to a program. At least Neil Brown can say that. He sat off a year at Texas, doing whatever he was doing for Steve Sarkisian. Probably was his assistant to the assistant of Steve Sarkisian. So anyway, Tavita Pritchard, out of nowhere to Stanford. I graded it as a D+. So I'm going to say it again. Stanford and Andrew Luck, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
But again, I mean, I would at least give him more benefit of the doubt than a Will Hall, though, because at least we don't know whether he's going to succeed or not. For Will Hall, though, we've seen him as a G5 coach, and he's a failed coach. So I'm at least willing to give him a little bit more benefit of the doubt, which is why I didn't put him in the what are we doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the same token, I definitely understand where you're coming from, but
I'm just harsh.
Reed, I don't know how he pulled it off. 35 coaching hires. We talked about them all tonight. Before we sign off here tonight, man, do you have any final thoughts about the concoction of a list that we just put together?
I'm just glancing over it again. Shoot, Penn State got the best of the multi-base hit hires. So what can I say? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Do not clip that. That was a joke. I'm just gonna throw out probably like the most underrated hire on this list. I'm probably gonna go Tosh Luploy, most underrated hire out of the bunch. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I do mess with. I really like Tosh Luploy. Again, I mean, I didn't put him higher because I got to see him actually coach.
Oh yeah,
as a head coach. But the more I look at Cal, though, there's more. The more that I like them.
Yes.
So
they added some great players through the portal.
Yeah.
So
So hopefully they don't burn me, and hopefully they don't burn you either.
But we're on the same page here.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to like with Cal. And I think that's a great note to end on here tonight. We told you guys we were going to have a jam-packed show. I didn't think it was going to be this jam-packed, but we got you. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show here tonight. If you enjoyed yourself, make sure you go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. We're going to get ready to sign off, but hope you guys are all out there having a good night. Take care, everybody.